So picture this. You live a happy life. Actually, more than this, you live a perfect life. Your perfect life. Not only did you marry your college sweetheart after months and months of pursuing her, but now that you are married, you have two beautiful children together, a son and a daughter. You have the dream job that you've always wanted. And all in all, your life is looking pretty damn good. Almost too good to be true. In fact, it is too good to be true. One day you're sitting in your living room, as you've done many, many times, and you look over at your lamp, and something about it catches your eye. You know the way, like, in your living room or in your space, like, you don't really pay that much attention to the objects around you, but today you are. Today you're looking at that lamp, and something about that lamp is just not right. Next thing you know, you're lying on the ground after an accident that had happened to you 10 years prior, and you realise that the last decade of your life has not been real at all. Creepy, right? Freaked the shit out of me. It sounds like the plot to some, like, sci-fi, psychological, like, thriller, horror, but one guy on Reddit swears to God that it happened to him. On January 11th, 2012, Reddit user Temptotosun posted this in response to the question, have you ever felt a deep personal connection to a person you met in a dream, only to wake up feeling terrible because you realise they never existed? He said, last semester at a certain college, I was assaulted by a football player for walking where he was trying to drive. No, he was £325 and I was 120. While unconscious on the ground, I lived a different life. I met a wonderful young lady. She made my heart skip and my face red. I pursued her for months and dispatched a few jerk boyfriends before I finally won her over. After 2 years, we got married, and almost immediately, she bore me a daughter. I had a great job and my wife didn't have to work outside of the house. When my daughter was 2, she, my wife, bore me a son. My son was the joy of my life. I would walk into his room every morning before I left for work and doted on him and my daughter. One day, while sitting on the couch, I noticed that the perspective of the lamp was odd, like inverted. It was still in 3D, but just wrong. It was a square lamp base, red with gold trim on 4 legs and a white square shade. I was transfixed. I couldn't look away from it. I stayed up all night staring at it. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Something was just not right about that lamp. I stopped eating. I only left the couch to use the bathroom at first. Soon I stopped doing that too, as I wasn't eating or drinking. I stared at the fucking lamp for 3 days before my wife got really worried. She had someone come by and try to talk to me. By this time, my cognizance was breaking up and my wife was freaking out. She took the kids to her mother's house just before I had my epiphany. The lamp is not real. The house is not real. My wife, my kids, none of that is real. The last 10 years of my life are not fucking real. The lamp started to grow wider and deeper. It was still in inverted dimensions. It took up my entire perspective and all I could see was red. I heard voices, screams, all kinds of weird noises, and I became aware of pain. A fucking shit ton of pain. The first words I said were, I'm missing teeth, and I opened my eyes. I was laying on my back on the sidewalk, surrounded by people that I didn't know. Lots were freaking out, and I was completely confused. At some point, a cop scooped me up, dragged/walked me across the sidewalk and grass and threw me face down in the back of a cop car. I was still confused. I was taken to the hospital by the cop. Seems he didn't want to wait for the ambulance to arrive, and given CT scans and shit. I went through 3 years of horrid depression. I was grieving the loss of my wife and children and dealing with the knowledge that they never existed. I was scared that I was going insane as I would cry myself to sleep, hoping I would see her in my dreams. But I never have. But sometimes I see my son, usually just a glimpse out of my peripheral vision. He is perpetually 5 years old and I can never hear what he says. Well, we've got a lot to unpack here. First of all, what the fuck? Stories like this really mess with my head, and I don't know why. There's just something about things that question reality that I find like more terrifying than anything. Like, I think one really scary episode of Buffy is Normal Again from, I believe, season 6, where Buffy is made to think that she is in a mental asylum and her whole life in Sunnydale was a figment of her imagination. Like, it fucks me up so fucking badly. I feel like it's so scary because there actually, in the grand scheme of things, there is so little that we know about our brains, and there's so little that we know about the universe that literally at any moment in time we could wake up and be like, oh my god, I'm not in Kansas anymore, and like, that's just scary. So there are a few possible explanations for what happened here. The first one is lamp guy is lying and he just thought it would be a funny thing to say. But that's boring and I'm no skeptic, so I'm choosing to ignore this possibility entirely. Even though I do hate the way that he says that his wife bore him a son and that he did have a son and a daughter, yet it was only the son who was the joy of his life, and it's only the son that he still sees and he doesn't care about his daughter, but he could literally just be a dickhead, who knows. Second possibility is brains are weird. Like I said, I'm no skeptic, but I'm also no neuroscientist, so your brain making up a wife and kids and work and a whole other life while you're unconscious, that could be something that your brain does. My brain makes shit up all the time. Take dreaming, for example. Dreaming is mental, and your brain is literally just like pulling this shit out of nowhere and being like, here, there's a weird dream, there's a weird dream, there's a weird dream. Brains, strange, and we don't know that much about them really. Dreams also last anywhere from just a couple of seconds to about 20 or 30 minutes, but while you're in that dream, have you ever questioned the length of time that dream is? Granted, I've never had a dream that has followed like a perfect 10-year timeline that felt like I was like living my life for like a whole decade. But I have had dreams that are so beyond strange that while I'm actually in that dream, I haven't questioned how strange the dream is. And then I have had dreams where I go, oh, this is really weird, this doesn't seem right, this must be a dream. And then I kind of like snap out of it, kind of like seeing the lamp and realising something's just not quite right. And remember, this didn't happen to him when he was asleep. This happened to him after he'd suffered a severe head trauma. So who honestly knows what could happen when your brain has been like damaged to some degree? When people come out of comas, they say that when they were in the coma, like some crazy stuff, like, or they've had like near death experiences, they're unconscious and they like see like their dead loved ones, or they like speak to God, and like there's just so much that we don't know about what happens to your brain when it goes unconscious. I know, like, I guess like on like a medical like scientific level we know like a great amount about the brain, but there is still a lot of it that is like a complete mystery. I actually remember having this dream one time, and this must have been about 15 years ago, and like this dream still stays with me and I still feel like a little pang of sadness when I think about this dream. So in this dream I had a dog, and my dog was called Turquoise. I distinctly remember that. And I like can't actually remember what the dog looked like, what kind of breed it was, anything like that. I just remember this like connection that I had with this dog. And in the dream I feel like, I think I was a man in the dream, so I was myself, but it almost felt like I was like a past incarnation of myself. It's weird, like, you know, like there was no like context to like tell me that, but you just kind of know that that's what's kind of going on internally. Anyway, in this dream, Turquoise was literally like my best friend, and it was almost like we had this kind of like telepathic communication with each other. Like, I can't like express like how close we were. So when the time came for Turquoise to die, he told me that he would be with me through every incarnation, every other reincarnation that I went through. His soul was always going to like find my soul. And when I woke up, I was sobbing. I don't mean just like that was like a sad dream. Like, I was literally sobbing. I felt like I had like lost my dog. I felt like I had lost my best friend, and I felt this like crazy connection to this dog that never existed on this earth as I know it. But as a guy I once knew said, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. The third possible explanation is that there was a glitch in the Matrix. A very popular theory is that the world as we know it and our whole lives are just some kind of computer simulation. And like a computer system sometimes glitches, so does our simulation as well. Because basically our reality is nothing more than just a big game of Sims. So common but weird phenomenons that might happen when a glitch in the Matrix happens is something like deja vu, where you feel like you have experienced a moment before, even though you have literally never lived that moment. You can go to a place that you have never been and you can get deja vu, and you just have this like deep intense knowing that you have like lived this experience before. You might even predict what's going to be able to happen next, and then it happens, or you might know exactly what somebody's going to say next and then they say it. And when you're in that state of deja vu, it feels incredibly strange. Like, it feels almost like you're like in a bubble, or you're like not real, like as if like you're not part of like reality, or you're in like a dream-like state. That's just how it feels like for me anyway. It's like the best way I can describe it. It's like a detachment from reality. And then typically deja vu only lasts for like a couple of seconds, definitely less than a minute, and when that time is over and you snap out of deja vu, that is you like completely back to normal, as if it never happened. You're like snapped back into reality and everything is fine. The Mandela effect is also a common conspiracy theory that people consider to be a glitch in the Matrix as well. It all started when in 2013 Nelson Mandela died, and some people were very confused because they remember him having already died. And I'm one of those people as well, because I swear to God, when I was in school, like, we learned about Nelson Mandela, and I could have staked my life on it that I remember being taught about Nelson Mandela dying while he was still in prison, and his wife doing like a really heartfelt speech, and how obviously it was such a great tragedy that this man had like died in prison. But I left school in 2008 and he died in 2013, so that can't possibly be a reality. However, loads of people all over the world, I mean like thousands of people all over the world, have the exact same memory that I have of knowing about Nelson Mandela's death already. And like, when he died, people were like, he already died. I actually had the exact same thing with Gene Wilder, who played the original Willy Wonka, and it's really strange because my mum had the exact same thing as well. Like, I remember like seeing tributes to him on TV and stuff like that, and then when it came about that he had died, I was like, what? And I like messaged my mum and I was like, Gene Wilder died? And she was like, wait, is he not already dead? And I was like, I thought so as well. Anyway, this is what started what is now referred to as the Mandela effect, where thousands of people all over the world remember deaths, pop culture moments, quotes, world events, big massive like things, tiny little things, all in the exact same way, but not the way that they are in this reality. But other glitches in the Matrix include people disappearing, reappearing, seeing people that you know are definitely dead, and seeing objects moving on their own or disappearing and reappearing again. One Reddit user, DeskJockey26, even had his own glitch in the Matrix tale to tell. My dad used to get up around 3 a.m. every morning for work. Starting at a very early age, I would wake up on my own and wander downstairs to see him before he left. One morning when I was about 4 years old, I made it to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the front door was ajar. I opened it up and saw my father in his favourite work shirt making his way down the driveway to his truck in his typical work outfit, plaid shirt and dickies. I swung the door wide open and yelled for him to come back for a hug before he left. He slowly turned around and just stared at me and started walking back towards the house. He was looking so strangely at me that it started to scare me, and I began to cry and ask him what was wrong. Just as he had almost reached me, a pair of arms encircled me from behind in a bear hug. I turned my head to see my understandably freaked out father staring at his doppelganger in the same outfit. The double took one look at my dad and ran down the driveway. Meanwhile, my dad yanked me in the house and locked the door. Weirdest morning ever. Never did quite figure that one out. I would not trust my 4-year-old memory if it wasn't also witnessed by my father. He won't really talk about it these days, but my mum has since told me that he called out of work and she spent the day reassuring him that he wasn't a nutcase. Okay, alternate dimensions, the multiverse or parallel realities could also explain Lamp Guy's predicament. And this theory in general is one that is believed by loads of people, from spiritual gurus to quantum physicists. This theory, in basic terms, is that there is an unlimited number of realities all running at the one time. There is no before, there is no after. Time as we know it does not exist. Everything is happening all at the same time. So as much as there is a Christy right now sitting in front of you telling you how one time 12 years ago a guy thought his lamp was weird, there is also a 5-year-old Christy having her first day at school, teenage Christy having her first kiss, a 98-year-old Christy on her deathbed, and everything in between. Everything I will experience in this life is all happening right now, and all the other possibilities are also happening right now. But our human brain, the way we are biologically made, can only experience things in a timeline that makes sense to us. So all these other things are happening, but we can only experience so much of it at the one time. And as much as there are timelines within the construct of our lives as we know it, there are also limitless realities. If you can think it, then it exists. So there is a you who is best friends with Taylor Swift. There might be a you who is Taylor Swift, lucky you. There's a you laying on a Caribbean island with a cocktail in your hand. And there's a you in jail right now for robbing a bank. There's a you who exists as a space cowboy. There's a you who exists as a clown made of chocolate. Everything you can possibly think exists. This means that your imagination is real, fictional characters from a book is real, TV stories are real, Avril Lavigne is real, everything you can think of is real. Doesn't that just hurt your brain a little bit? And this is why our brains can't experience it all at once, because it's so small. So what if Lamp Guy somehow shifted reality? There are countless people out there who are absolutely sure that they have somehow managed to shift reality, either on purpose or during an accident where they seem to be literally forced out of the reality that they're in and shift into another one. A lot of manifestation coaches and gurus all talk about purposely shifting reality to where your manifestation already exists. So the idea behind this is, because all realities already exist, you don't really have to manifest something, you just have to line up with the reality in which that version of you already exists. It sounds mental, but if you do prescribe to the multiverse theory, then a second from now, 5 minutes from now, 25 hours from now, 63 years from now are all existent in this one timeline. So really, if you think about it that way, each fraction of a second is a reality shift in itself based on the decisions that you make right now. But your brain doesn't experience it as a shift, your brain just experiences it as like going through life, because that's just how your brain works. But think about 5 minutes ago, it literally doesn't exist anymore in our like perception. However, some people do manage to reality jump without even meaning to on a day like no other. Like Reddit user 17demondix, who not only has the best username I've ever heard in my life, but has a really great story to tell. This happened when I was around 18 or 19, but I remember it vividly because of how jarring and confusing it was. I've had a few odd experiences with dreams, but nothing in the middle of the day like this. So when this happened, I was still living at home with my parents, and we lived in my childhood home. This home was pretty much all I knew, as we moved there when I was 3 years old. I had a habit of going on daily walks in the nearby park, something I did nearly every single day since I was 14 or 15 years of age up until I moved out. It was the summer around 1 or 2 p.m. and I went to leave the house for one of my walks. I slipped my shoes on and went to open the door as usual, but then when I stepped out of the house and looked up, my neighbourhood felt completely wrong. It didn't look different. Everything looked exactly the same as it usually did. The small ravine next to our house, the tree in the front yard, the steep driveway in our neighbours' houses. All of it looked completely normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something really wrong. It felt as if reality was warped or something. I stood on the front porch for a minute or so trying to figure out what felt so incredibly wrong with my neighbourhood. After a while though, I figured I was just being silly and made my way down the driveway. When I was about halfway down, my neighbour who was tending to his garden across the street looked up towards me and stared at me as if he saw a ghost. His face going completely pale, and opened his mouth to speak. Before I could even stare at him in confusion, before he had gotten a single word out, I was back inside my house at my front door about to leave. I was completely shaken. I had no idea how I had ended up back in my front door. I had no idea what I had just experienced. And when I pulled the door open, it was completely normal. Nothing felt wrong anymore. It was all glaringly normal. The only difference was when I opened my door again, my neighbour was not out the front gardening. I decided not to go for a walk that day. Years later, I have no idea what I experienced, and as weird as it sounds, the part that freaks me out most is how wrong my neighbourhood felt despite looking exactly the same. So between the weird teleportation back indoors and my neighbour acting as if he was staring at a ghost, the feeling of wrongness is the thing that bothers me the most. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't feel unsafe. It didn't feel like dread. It just felt like I was looking at a completely different version of my neighbourhood at that moment, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. I've never really told anyone about this, as I'm usually a pretty sceptical person, but I've had no way to explain this. So, what do you make of that? Please, I am begging you, leave in the comments what you think, because I need to discuss this. I need to debrief. I need to know what you think of this, because it's so weird. That last one that I read there, somebody had actually replied to that person saying something along the lines of, what if your neighbour was looking at you as if you were a ghost because you shifted into a timeline where you had already died? So for your neighbour, they were looking at a ghost, so that's why they were looking at you so freaked out, and that would potentially explain why people sometimes see ghosts, because they're somehow like accidentally glitching into like a different reality. And I thought that was like a really weird, like really cool take on it. Thought that was so freaky. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about Lamp Guy and all the stories that we've spoke about today, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.